Bird. For those of you who are new, my name is Kenny. I'm getting a chance to serve as a part of the staff team here at Mosaic Church, and absolutely love getting a chance to do that. We have a little bit of a light crowd tonight, but that's all right. Thank you for those of you who are here on a regular basis, who are loyal and faithful. Glad to have you guys. For those of you who are relatively new, glad to have you. Enoch, man, it's good to have you, bro. For those of you who don't know, Enoch just moved to Florida, and he was in the Marine Corps for several years, and now just moved to Florida. And so, glad to have you, man. Good to get a chance to connect with you, man. I'm excited to have you here with us, man. Well, for those of you who have been here the last couple weeks, you know we've been in the middle of a series called "What's in the Bag," and when we say "What's in the bag," we're talking about ourselves. So you are the bag. Your heart, your mind, your life. You are the bag, and we're asking the question: what is inside the bag? When you really evaluate your own heart, your own life, your own mind, what's really going on inside of you? So really we're talking about character development. We're talking about the importance of being people of integrity and high caliber character. For those of you who were here 2 weeks ago, the first week we talked about and just shared about kind of defining what is character. And the idea that character really is the way you make decisions and the level of commitment you have to doing things God's way. And really the importance of our character should always be we always should be seeking to develop our character and get better, but that should always be out of a heart of gratitude for the gospel. And so, so many times we can try to challenge each other to be better in our lives, but we do it out of behavior modification. And God is not impressed by your ability to do things well. He's not. He's not impressed by your ability to be a good person or have good ethics or have good morals. In fact, there's really nothing you can do to ever impress God. He really is. He knows everything already. He knows who you are. And he's really not impressed by that. But he longs for us to commune with him. He enjoys being in our lives. He enjoys being intimate with us. And so he longs for us to be with him. The more we spend time with him, the more we end up changing to look more like him. Last week we started talking about really some of the areas when we have good character and when we spend time with God and we get better in our relationship with the Father, and when we start living lives that look more like Jesus, this begins to kind of penetrate and permeate a variety of different areas of our life. So last week we talked about our relationship with other people. We talked about the idea that when we have good character, when we develop our character, that really ought to affect our relationship with others, particularly when we put others first. And so we're talking about what's in the bag. We're talking about how do we have good character. We're talking about how does the gospel really inform and govern every area of our lives. And then we're going to talk about some specific things that we can do to really get better in every single area. And so tonight, before we dive in, I want to kind of talk. I want to sort of grab a bag. I have a bag here, and I wonder what's in the bag. Are you smiling because you think you know what's in the bag? Oh, you don't. Jessica, would you like to come and grab your hand and tell us what's in the bag? No. Okay. I'd like a young lady to volunteer to reach in and pull out what's in the bag. We're very curious. What, Ashley? Are you interested in coming? No, you're not. Kaylee Fitzpatrick, come on up. You are the next contestant when the Price is Right.
Kaylee.
Kaylee, it's so good to see you. Guys, this is Kaylee Fitzpatrick. She is so cool. That's right. All right. Here we go. So what I want you to do, I want you to just reach in there and just reach in there.
It's not roaches, right?
No, it's not roaches. I promise.
Or spiders.
It's not spiders.
Okay.
Don't look. Close your eyes. Okay. Go ahead in there. Reach in and pull out something you got. Go ahead.
Oh, what is it? It's moving.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Behind me? What is it? Oh, okay.
It's just a little cute worm.
Is that like, yeah,
Yeah, it's moving. It's alive. Hey, you know you can buy 12 of these for $3.99 at PetSmart? I just discovered that today. Okay, I would give $10 to anyone who eats it.
See, I got so well.
You guys are poor college students. Okay, so tonight, would you like to keep them? You can have them. I'm going to set them right here. See how they do. So gross. So I walked into PetSmart today, and I said to the lady, I said, hey, do you have any slugs for sale? She said, no. Slugs, or snails, something slimy, something disgusting. And she goes, well, I've got night crawlers, or worms. She took me back, and she showed me all these different types. I'm from the city. For those of you who don't know, I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Born and raised in the hood. And My idea of fishing is going down like aisle 2 at Publix. Like that's fishing. Actually last week, someone was asking about roughing it. I was at an event for a friend's birthday party at the Disney Wilderness Lodge, and like the lodge has like beds and air conditioning and cable and Wi-Fi. I'm like, no, this is camping. All right, that's what I'm talking about. And so that's how you rough it. To me, Motel 6 is roughing it. All right. And so if anyone's ever stayed at a Motel 6, you know that's roughing it. And so I'm not a fan of like touching things, and I didn't really know there's this whole other world of like bait and fish and there's all these things you can touch and buy and all these creepy there's all different types of little creepy things you might buy depending on what kind of fish you want to catch. The whole thing is weird to me. White folks, you guys do some strange things. Anyway, you guys, those are just Hispanics. We don't really mess with that stuff. So tonight I want to the reason why I went in, I wanted to grab something that was kind of sluggish and disgusting is because tonight I want to talk about a topic that I think is really important, that I think really speaks to character. And if you're going to develop your character, if the gospel is really informing your life, and the gospel is really transforming how you make decisions day by day, it really ought to affect your work ethic. So tonight, I want to ask you a question. What's in the bag, the sluggard or the ant? What's in the bag, the sluggard or the ant? There's a great, I love the Bible. The Bible is so entertaining. There's a great passage in Proverbs chapter 6, verse 6. It says this. Solomon is writing, "Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise." Proverbs 6:6. "Go to the ant, you sluggard." The word sluggard, now me and Joe were talking, and we actually looked it up online today. And the word sluggard is slug-like. Someone who acts like a slug. Slugs do nothing. They're lazy, they're slow-moving, they're not really focused. And so I would say you ought not to be a sluggard. Being slug-like, it's just kind of, I just can't imagine being like one of these dudes right here. Just be a slug. That's, the Bible's saying don't be like this dude. Or do that. I don't know, sure it's a girl, guy. I'm not sure if there's guy or girl worms. They're the same? They're same gender? Okay, they're all one gender. A gender. Whatever it is, I don't know. The Bible makes it very clear. Don't be a sluggard. And so, hey, work hard, the Bible's telling us. Hashtag slug like life. Okay, don't be a slug. The Bible has a variety of things. So I think sometimes we don't really think about our work ethic or our work habits as a part of our character. And so we've talked a lot about the idea that God made us with the imago Dei, the image of God. Some guys are like, I had one of my high school students last night say, "Man, you say that a lot, you talk about that a lot." I know. Ephesians 4 says, a repetition is good for us. It's good for us to hear this over and over again. I believe this is the essence of everything we do. God created everything good, creative and awesome and complete, but He created us very differently. When He made animals and humanity, or when He created the earth, He created everything good and awesome, and He demonstrated what He could do. But when He created us, He was demonstrating who He was. He took His own essence, elements of Himself, and He endows it into us, humanity, human beings. And God is calling us to live our lives in such a way that we reflect God to other people. That other people would look at us and say, "Oh wow, that's what God must look like." And because of sin and our own stupid choices, we separate ourselves from God and we make it virtually impossible for our own selves to reflect God in a beautiful way. And so God comes in our lives and He rescues us because He loves us. He loves us too much to say the story stops with your betrayal and your stupidity. He could have said, "To hell with you." But He says, "I love you too much that I choose to interject myself into your life and I rescue you. And I restore you back to a place where you can reflect me." And I want that in every area of your life. I want people to look at the way you treat other people, like we talked last week, and look and say, "You know what? Wow, look how Ashley treats Olivia. Wow, that is so awesome. That must be how God treats people." God wants us to live our lives in such a way. Look how Jonathan makes those great choices. That's how God must live. And as we develop our character, we want to live our lives in such a way that people can look and say, that's how God is. And so we want to be real honest and examine our lives and say, okay, in my work ethic, does my life reflect God? as I'm working in school or my job or in ministry or whatever I have, every opportunity I have, does my work ethic and the way I choose to live my life in my work habits, does that reflect God? I remember a couple years ago, I was living in Rockford, Illinois, and I was an intern at a church about 12, 13 years ago now. And I'll never forget that there was a custodial guy, a guy who worked in the facilities department, was working late one night. So it was about 11:56, 11:57, and we're walking outside. And I remember there's a dude standing outside of there's like a punch clock where you clock in and out. And he's like standing and he's staring at the clock. And it's like 11:56, 11:57. And he's like standing there waiting. And it's like he's going to get off work at midnight. And I remember walking past him, and I'll never forget this idea. As I walk past and walk in the park, and I'm thinking to myself, so he must have been working, and he's getting paid until midnight, but here he is at 11:56 staring at the clock, and just waiting the clock out, just waiting to get done. And I thought to myself, what a lazy punk. And that's how I felt in the moment. Well, how lazy that is. If I were his boss, I'd fire him on the spot. I was so angry. And as I was driving home, I'll never forget, even though it was easy for me to work hard at church as an intern because I loved what I did, but I felt like God began to really speak to me. The Holy Spirit, as I was driving home, the Holy Spirit began to kind of point out areas of my life where I was doing the same thing. It was easy for me to look at someone who was being lazy in an area or a genre in which I worked hard, but as I translated it to other areas of my life, if I was honest and examined myself, I began to realize I'm actually just as bad as that guy is, actually probably worse. And so I would ask you to really be honest with yourself, examine, is there areas of my life where I've just really been lazy, where I've been a sluggard? And so what I want to do is just take a second and kind of ask two questions. And so I want you to maybe group up, just find someone next to you, maybe 2 or 3 people, get in groups like you guys can stay together, and maybe just get in little groups. And I want every person to kind of just share in small groups, share kind of 2 things in your life. Think about maybe someone in your life that you thought was incredibly lazy. You don't have to share any names. Or someone you thought was just not demonstrating work ethic, and how you felt in that moment. Why does it stand out to you? Like my experience 13 years ago, I'm sure that guy today, wherever he is probably not excited about the idea that some dude is using him in a sermon in a bad illustration. I'm sure that doesn't excite him, right? And so, but ask yourself, is there anyone that's kind of been lazy in your own life? And then share that with other people, what was the experience that you had? And then on top of that, maybe share with each other an experience where you've seen someone that wasn't lazy, someone who had great work ethic and really inspired you. And what about them inspired? So why don't you find we can play a little bit of music there in the background, and we'll just take about 3 minutes. Grab a group of partners and just share with each other a story that you had recently or maybe a couple years ago of someone that you thought was lazy, that frustrated you, and a moment or experience you had where someone inspired you because of their work ethic. So, all right, would anyone like to share? You don't have to share stories about someone who was lazy or didn't have good work ethic, but tell me, what was it about the things that people who had great work ethic could inspire? Maybe someone want to share a story or something that stood out to them, just like that really inspired me. I have 2 people share. Kaylee, would you like to share? What? Would you like to share? Anyone? Would anyone like to share?
We went negative over here.
You went all negative? It's good. You want to share? All right, Ashley's going to share. Go ahead, girl.
My dad, he was in the Air Force for 23 years, and I guess from that he's instilled good work ethic in me. He's inspired me because he's so, and you know about it, like it's still like it's so important to get your work done, like be like prompt, I guess is the right word for it. So that's kind of inspired me.
All right.
Awesome.
Anyone else been inspired by someone? Work ethic? Great work ethic? Andy's got one in the back.
When I first started working where I'm working now, I used to always come in jeans and a t-shirt. And there was a guy that started working there, and he always came in dressed up, wearing nice slacks, wearing a button-up shirt. And I could just tell that, he carried himself well. And it challenged me to be more professional, and so I started dressing up as well. He got fired 6 months later, so it didn't really change. But I learned that.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I think that counts in both categories.
Yeah. I'll never forget, I read a book a couple years ago called The Fred Factor. And has anyone ever read that book? No one? Not one person in the room? All right. It's all right. I read a book called The Fred Factor. I would highly recommend. The guy who wrote the book tells a story. The book Fred Factor is based on a mailman in Denver, the Denver area. This guy named Fred, who would go above and beyond and worked so hard that he developed a reputation for being the best mail carrier in the United States. He developed this, and people like he became famous at the post office all across the country. And so there was a guy at the John Maxwell Equip organization that heard about this and wrote a book about this guy Fred. So the whole book's about the things that Fred did and his work ethic, his customer service, his spirit of excellence, his commitment to excellence. And he tells a bunch of stories in the book of people that he's encountered in his life that are people who work hard, people who are like Fred. And he tells a story about he was doing a leadership seminar in a city at a particular hotel and was staying there one night, got there late one night, and his shirt, he only had one extra shirt with him he was going to wear the next day speaking, and he ended up spilling coffee on the shirt by accident. So late that night, he's trying to find like a late night dry cleaner or trying to find a place he can go buy a shirt. He was struggling, he couldn't get it. He had major levels, really late, so he goes to one of the hotel employees and, hey, is there a way I can wash clothes here, or can I wash this, or what are my options? And the lady said, don't worry, I'll take care of it for you. And so the next morning, she comes in and comes to the room at like 5 a.m. and his shirt is washed and pressed and cleaned. And so he tells a story. Later he discovers that this woman took his shirt, actually because they didn't have the facilities to wash a shirt at the hotel. She took it home, washed it by hand, dried it, and pressed it herself at home. She actually her next day was an off day. She actually was off work. She came in at 5 a.m. on her day off to bring him a shirt that had been just cleaned and neatly pressed and perfect. And he was just blown away by this. He wrote about it in his book, how this woman is like a friend. And every time he's in the Denver area, he always stays at that same hotel. Now she has won them over. But I think about the idea of a spirit of excellence in everything we do. One of my favorite elements, for those of you who follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you know there's a place I'm at on a regular basis. This little place called Walt Disney World. So you guys know I'm there on a regular basis. In fact, I had lunch with Terry Jeter today. He's on staff at our church, and he just said, man, you're getting used to that pass you've got. I said, heck yeah, I am. And the thing about Disney World doesn't even have the best rides on the planet. They don't even have like the best, if you go to Six Flags, there are better roller coasters. If you go to Busch Gardens, there are better adult rides. But there's something about the spirit of excellence. I mean, at Magic Kingdom, way in the back by the Cosmic Rays, where you can get food. One of the places, and so there's back behind the bathrooms. There's a bush, a Mickey Mouse bush. And you can barely see it. It's kind of an area that very few people are going to see it. But there's this bush. It's Mickey Mouse. And it's like perfect. It's like perfectly neat. And I remember walking out thinking to myself, like the idea that we're going to do everything with excellence. And every single area, we want to reflect the vision of Walter Disney to the world. And every employee that goes through traditions and starts to be a part of the Disney community begins to take on the attitude that it starts with me. I am the one to reflect the vision of Disney. Now, if the Disney employees can do that with the vision of a human being, how much more should we, as followers of God, commit to have a spirit of excellence in our lives that reflect the vision of the Creator? A Creator far more awesome, far more creative, far more visionary than Walt Disney ever could imagine to be. And I think sometimes as Christians, we forget and we cut corners and we don't do things in a quality way because we forget that we're called to reflect God in everything we do. So ask yourself this question: am I really willing to work hard in everything I do? Is there really a sluggard inside my bag, or is there an ant? Proverbs 6 says, hey, sluggard, stop being lazy. Look how the ant does things. The ant works hard. The ant is focused. Ants, little puny, brainless insects, are focused, disciplined, on a mission. How much more should we, if the ants can pull it off? And I think it's so funny when people just tell me, oh, I can't do it, or no, you're just lazy. You think you can't. You choose that. If an ant can do it, then so can you. Really, the ant is making you look bad. Really, you're being shown up by an ant. You really ought to feel silly. Are you really willing to work hard? And if you're here and you're really willing to work hard, that's awesome. Keep going, keep doing it. And begin to try to expand that into every area of your life. Are you willing to just make it happen? Do you have an attitude that's just, I'm going to make it happen? I don't know how many times I've gone to people and try to bring up ideas or try to do things, and they're just, well, they try to throw up roadblocks before they ever even, no. We decide we're going to do it, and then we figure out how to do it later. Recently, I just saw the movie about Steve Jobs' life, and thought it was decent, not great, but there was a scene in the movie that I thought was awesome. And he's talking about basically inventing a new type of battery pack. He's talking about, in the movie, he's saying, listen, we need to be able to get everything in one unit. And so he brings in this electrical engineer, and he says, here's what I need you to do. I need you to get a battery that will be twice as powerful, half the size, but never gets hot and fits inside this little machine here. And the guy's like, the other guy's like, that's impossible. It's impossible. And Steve Jobs, actually, because he did such a good job of playing this in the movie, he basically just tells, Steve Jobs in this moment tells, and I did a little Google research, and it's kind of a true story, exactly how the conversation went in his garage back in the 70s. And Steve Jobs looked at this guy and just said, looked him right in the eyes and said, we know it's impossible. Well, we've already determined we're going to get it done. We're going to make it happen. Yeah, it's impossible. We know that. But we're going to choose to make it happen, and then we'll figure it out afterwards. Within a year, they invented a new battery pack that is now the standard in all computers around the world. But so many times we look at things and say, well, that's not possible, so we're not going to do it. No. A person who has a great work ethic, who wants to reflect God, says, no, we know it can happen. We're going to determine to do it first, and then we'll figure out a way later. The fact that I can't see how it's going to be done is never an excuse not to do it. Do you have a make it happen attitude? Do you really have a whatever it takes attitude? I love, some of the guys that are part of we have some people here in this room right now that are a part of a great team. They show up early every Thursday night. They show up on our leadership meeting. There are several people in this room that have demonstrated to me, I got to make it, we're going to do whatever it takes. If we got to show up at 6 o'clock, we show up at 6 o'clock. If we got to stay late to tear down chairs and tear down pipe and drape, Tiffany McGlone, who's actually just walked out of the room, has an incredible just make it happen attitude. Whatever it takes. Whatever we got to do, we're going to make it happen. We're going to do it. Do you really have that in your life? And I think it's so important that if we're going to reflect God in every area, that we make sure that we do that in our work ethic and our work choices. So really ask yourself, when I'm doing it, when I'm studying for a test, am I doing it the way God would do it? If I am working at my job, am I really working at my job the way when Jonathan's at Kohl's and he's stocking the back, he's doing things back, is he doing it just to kind of half-heartedly, or is he doing it with everything? Could God step down and say, the way Jonathan's doing it, that's the way I would do it? If you can't honestly say, the way I'm working is the way God would do it, if that doesn't match, then something needs to be corrected. If the way God would work at something and the way you would work at something, if those two don't match, one of those two persons have to change. And it's probably not God. When I look through the scripture and I look at the way God does things, there are three things that stand out to me the way God does things. God is always creative. And I can't stand when I hear people say, well, I'm just not a creative person. I don't believe that. Because if you are made in the image of God, and God is creative, then you have creative abilities in you. Now, some people are going to be naturally more creative thinkers. There are going to be some people who are naturally going to be more creative in some areas than others. But every single human being, by the sheer fact that you are made in the image of God, has some creative ability in you. If you ever catch yourself saying, well, I'm just not creative, the real way to articulate that is, I'm just lazy and don't want to tap into my creativity. That's the real way to articulate that. Every single person has some creative power. And I would really encourage you to say, okay, where has God gifted me to be creative, and how can I use that? Because God is creative in everything He does. Secondly, everything God does is complete. He never just does things half-heartedly. He never just does it halfway. Never. You can't find anything in the Scripture. I am so glad that Jesus didn't get on the cross and then after halfway through goes, it is half finished, and then died. I'm glad He didn't only die on this cross enough for half of my sins. because it would still not be sufficient. I'd be on the way to hell. If you're in this room and you claim to love God, and you say, I've been rescued by God, you got to understand that He said it is finished. And He is calling you to work the way He would work. To do things to completion. To see things through. To be diligent in being a completer, a finisher. And the third thing that God always does, He always does things with excellence. God is always creative. He is always complete. He is always excellent. God doesn't do anything shoddy. He doesn't do anything shoddy. There's nothing. You point out one thing in creation that is just half-hearted. Nothing. Everything is excellent. Everything is awesome. And so therefore, if we're going to reflect God, we need to do the same thing. There are some great benefits to having a great work ethic. Let me ask you, what are some of the things that you would say is a great benefit to being working? Throw out some ideas. You say, you have a good work ethic, these are the things that will probably happen. Somebody throw out a benefit.
Promotion.
You can get a promotion at work or wherever you are. That's right.
You're actually productive and make something happen.
You can actually be productive, actually make something happen. That's right.
Help people.
You can help people. Yeah. These are all right here. These are all benefits of having a good work ethic, right? I think I wrote down a couple that I think stand out to me. If you have a great work ethic, you'll get far in life. Proverbs 13:4 says this: the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. Proverbs 13:4. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. One of the greatest examples of this comes from the world of sports. I'm from Philly, and I'm a huge fan of the Philadelphia 76ers. That's the Philadelphia basketball team. And in 1996, actually on my birthday in 1996, the Philadelphia 76ers drafted a 5'11" point guard from Georgetown University, a guy by the name of Allen Iverson. Has anyone ever heard of Allen Iverson? Raise your hand if you ever heard of him. You got a few people. All right, if you feel like you know Allen Iverson, really, you know a lot about him, raise your hand. If you feel like you know a lot about him, all right? Alyssa, she's from Philly, all right. Okay, now about 13 years before Allen Iverson was drafted, there was another guard, a 6'6" guard from North Carolina, drafted by the Chicago Bulls, 3rd overall, a guy by the name of Michael Jordan. If you've ever heard of Michael Jordan, raise your hand. If you feel like you've heard, okay, I don't know if there's anyone in the room that's never heard. Morgan, have you ever heard of Michael Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. All right. All right. Just making sure. Everyone's heard of Michael Jordan. Okay. Michael Jordan was drafted 3rd overall, by the way, behind Akeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie. Wow. Anyway. And so, crazy to think that Sam Bowie was selected before Michael Jordan. Disaster. Anyway, so Michael Jordan is selected. The reason I mentioned Michael Jordan and Allen Iverson in the same sentence is this. Allen Iverson, and some people may say this is like almost basketball blasphemy, but Allen Iverson had talent that was probably comparable to Michael Jordan. In fact, he was probably quicker and faster. He was a better ball handler, a better dribbler, at quicker feet, quicker motions to the basket. In fact, I was watching a video today where Allen Iverson actually jukes out Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan kind of laughs it off. And you just got schooled by Allen Iverson, Michael. But when people talk about the best basketball players of all time, people talk about Michael Jordan often. I mean, in fact, most basketball connoisseurs will tell you Michael Jordan is the best basketball player of all time. My dad will tell you it was Wilt Chamberlain from back in the 60s, because he was probably the most dominant player of that era. But Michael Jordan is considered by most the best basketball player of all time. But there are some other guys in the mix. When you mention names. You know, Kobe Bryant is mentioned. Some people talk about LeBron James, who I think will retire as the greatest basketball player of all time. People talk about Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell, or there are other names. But when people talk about the best players of all time, Allen Iverson never comes up in the conversation. When people talk about the best players of all time, it's Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain. There's a few guys. It's usually Michael and then a few other guys that are kind of thrown in the mix. Allen Iverson never, ever enters the conversation. Now, Allen Iverson is one of the best players of this era. He is awesome. He was a dominant player for several years. He was a very good player for several years. One of the best players in the NBA for a decade. But he never enters the conversation of one of the best players of all time. And the reason why is simply not because he didn't have the talent. He had the natural ability to be as good, or at least in the conversation with Michael Jordan. The difference is this. Allen Iverson is most famous other than for being incredibly fast with basketball, he is most famous in 2006. There was a press conference he had. I actually thought about, me and Tiffany thought about showing it tonight. But we ended up, where he ends up saying the word practice 67 times in 2 minutes. Has anyone ever seen this press conference? Raise his hand. All right, we have 2 people have seen it. Where he's asked by a reporter, "Hey, Allen Iverson, why don't you practice?" And he says, "Practice? Practice? Why would I? We talking about practice? Why am I going to practice? Really? I'm going to practice? Practice? I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're sitting here talking about practice. Not a game. Not a game. Not a game. Practice." The reporter says, "Well, why don't maybe if you practice, you can make your teammates better." He goes, "How am I going to make my teammates better just by practicing? We sitting here, I'm not a great basketball player. Don't you watch me play? Don't I bring it every night?" And we sitting here talking about practice. He says practice 67 times in a 2-minute, 23-second span. And he's mocking the idea of practice. He's mocking the idea of working hard. He's making fun of it. Compare that to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan showed up every day. He would never leave practice. He was always the first one there. He would work out by himself for an hour. Then he would work out with his team. Then he would go through practice. And then when his team left, he would never leave until he hit 100 free throws. Michael Jordan was once asked by a reporter, "Why do you give everything every night?" And Michael Jordan said this: "Somewhere in the crowd, there's some kid. That's their first time seeing Michael Jordan play. I can't let him down." Allen Iverson, talented out the wazoo, fast, awesome. Why should I practice? Why should I work hard? Michael Jordan, awesome, talented. I'm going to work hard and I'm going to maximize my talent. One is considered the best player of all time. One is never even discussed, even though he could have been just as good. And if Michael Jordan is willing to put that much effort into basketball, how much more should we put effort into the kingdom of God? Michael Jordan is one of my heroes because he had one of the best work ethics of anyone you would ever see in sports. The guy worked hard to maximize his talent. Talent is never enough. Talent is never enough. We want to work hard. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing. When you're working really hard, another benefit I wrote down is the idea that you develop. You know, I've been working out. And so I've been using this as an example every week. I'm down to 209 pounds, pretty excited. And so, that's right. When I moved to Florida, I was 238. And so I'm at 209, pretty excited. And when I go to the gym and I work out, and the harder you work, the more it develops my physical body. If I go to the gym and I'm kind of lazy, the only person that cheats is me. The only person it affects is me. But the harder I work, the more my body is developed. Another great example, another great benefit of having a great work ethic is people notice. People are always watching you, even when you don't realize it. People are always watching you, even when you don't realize it. And that will lead to you gaining or losing credibility in people's lives. When you work really, really hard at something, even if you think no one's ever going to see it, a lot of times, people will end up noticing it later, and they'll see it, and they'll notice it, and you'll either gain or lose credibility in their eyes. Rarely do you stay neutral. If you have an opportunity to work hard and you take it, you will gain credibility. If you don't take that opportunity, you will lose credibility. Rarely will you ever remain neutral. In fact, probably never will you remain neutral in people's eyes. You will always either gain or lose credibility based on how hard you're willing to work. Are you willing to make it happen? Do you have a whatever it takes attitude in every area of your life? But of all these benefits, of everything we talk about work ethic, the greatest thing, the most important thing is this, is that God is honored by our work ethic. You know, all parents are honored when their kids work hard. How many times have you ever seen it? You walking through, you're driving through the road and you see a parent with a bumper sticker, "My kid is an honor roll student at such and such high school." You've never ever seen, "My kid is the laziest kid in the class," right? You've never seen that. It doesn't exist, right? "My kid flunked out. My kid spent 3 years in the 8th grade." That doesn't exist. Parents are proud when their children work hard because it reflects on them and it makes their heart smile. Well, if human parents are that way, how much more is God, the best daddy of them all, that way? God is honored when we work hard. It makes Him look good. Everyone has preferences. We all have different preferences. We all like different things. God likes hard work. I don't know why. When I get to heaven one day, I'll ask Him, God, why did you like laziness? Why didn't you like when I just slept in and did nothing? Why didn't you like that? I don't know the reason why, but I know that He likes hard work. He prefers that. Let me give you a couple scripture verses. Ecclesiastes 9:10. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord, not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. Work as you're working unto the Lord. So when you walk into your class at Valencia and you're doing a math class, I'm taking a math test, or you're studying and you're working on a paper, or Jonathan, when you're working on your 7th paper for this week for class, right? When you're working, this guy writes like 7 papers a week, 2,000 words each. And when you're working on that stuff, you're not working for your teacher. Jared, when you walk into that hospital and you're working in your medical field, you're not working. He's not working for people. He's working for God. When I show up here in Mosaic, I don't work for Renault or for Joel or for Terry or for Phil. I work for God. When I show up and I prepare for Thursday nights, I don't even work for you. I'm not here to please. I'm here to work as I'm doing it for God. And He is honored by that. Proverbs 26:13. The sluggard says, there is a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets. A lazy person says, I'm not going to go outside today. There's a lion out there. Right? He might get me. Basically, he's saying, hey, I'm not going to go out because something bad might happen. You know, I'm not going to leave my house today and go to work because I might get in a car accident. Right? A lazy person is always looking for excuses not to work hard. And God is saying, will you look for reasons to do something opposite of that? Will you look for the reasons to work hard? Man, my boss is a jerk. Yeah, maybe he is. But that's not who you work for. My boss never appreciates me. But God sees it and He appreciates it. But my teacher doesn't understand how hard I work. It doesn't matter. God sees how hard you work or didn't work. Proverbs 12:24. Diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in slave labor. Proverbs 20, verse 4. A sluggard does not plow in season, so at harvest time he looks and finds nothing. God is honored by hard work. And God works well. He works complete. He works with excellence. If we're going to reflect God, we need to do that. There are 3 things I think we need to do in developing our work ethic. Number 1, we need to identify the roadblocks in our lives that will keep us from having good work ethic. I remember when I was a senior in high school, I went on a date. And so, yeah, I went on a date. Why are you laughing, Aaron? That's not funny. And so, thanks. I went on a date and you laughed. It's good. Thanks, Aaron. Anyway, and so I was a senior in high school, so it was like 14 years ago. That's the last time I went on a date. I've asked many since then, but they always say no. But anyway, just kidding. Hashtag just kidding. Hashtag still praying. Anyway, I went on a date with this girl, Felicia, and she was beautiful. She was half black, half Native American. I had jungle fever. Anyway, and so, hashtag he said that. And so, I'm on a date with Felicia. And so, we go to the movies, and we're hanging out. And, we're just, how girls do, hey, how you doing? Hey, girl, how you doing, girl? And so, hey, girl, what's your phone number, girl? You get text messages? I will text you. Anyway, so we're hanging out, watching a movie. Everything's going good, right? I'm on a date. And I was like, yeah, we're going to have a good time. And then, it's a true story. Wish it wasn't, but it's true. In the middle of this movie, I looked down and noticed my fly was down. It's all right, it's cool. Oh my God, okay, it's all right. It's a little embarrassing, but, I got a plan. My plan is this. I'm going to be like, hey, Felicia, you want some popcorn? Because you know how girls always want popcorn. You ask them out front, like, oh, no, we don't want popcorn. But you ask them in the middle of the movie, of course they want popcorn then. You know how girls do. Anyway, I was like, girl, you want some popcorn? Yeah, I'll take some popcorn. That's my impression of girls. And so, they hit. Girl, go ahead, get some popcorn. Anyway, go ahead, girl. Anyway, so she's like, go ahead, we'll give you some popcorn. I was like, yeah, girl, I'm going to get you some popcorn. So I go, I stand up, and my plan is that as I'm standing up, I'm just going to, zip up and Go out and get some popcorn. And my plan worked nearly flawlessly. I was sitting there, and baby wants some popcorn. She said, yeah, there's some popcorn. So I go and I zip up and I keep walking away. And as I'm walking away, I realized the one flaw of my plan was that I simply didn't realize that there was a girl sitting in front of me with this really long, straight, blonde hair. Yes. As I'm walking away, all I hear is, I look up, blonde hair right here. That's on video, podcast, that jump right there. Okay, so she screams, the lights come on, the girl's like, ah! Police is like, where's my It's funny, I know. See, what I failed to do is I didn't properly anticipate the things that could entangle me. I didn't look at my surroundings enough to consider what might get in the way between me accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. The task at hand, getting Felicia her popcorn and flipping up, getting my fly zipped up properly, quickly. And as funny and tragic as that story is, I think a lot of Christians are just as silly. We allow lots of things in our lives, and we don't really consider our surroundings, and we're not really intentional in the way we live our lives. There's all sorts of things that can trip us up, that can entangle us and get in our way of us accomplishing our goals. There are all sorts of things that we allow to get in the way of us accomplishing what God wants to do, and that's reflecting Him. And if God has rescued you, and you are a follower of Jesus, your number one goal that you've been rescued is to reflect God to each other and to the world. And in your work ethic, if you're going to have a great work ethic, if you are going to reflect God in the way you work, you have got to identify the things around your life that will get in the way of you having a great work ethic. Let me give you some great examples. Number one, how about video games? Maybe I don't know, maybe it's mostly a dude thing, but I don't know how many guys I know in their mid-20s that live in their parents' house, not paying rent, writing their name on the orange juice, barely working, and not really working hard, and spending hours a day playing video games. Now, maybe you're young and you're in a financial position where you can't pay rent, and you're in school, and that's cool. But you want to go to your parents and say, okay, how can I work and invest and back? And the reality is, if you're playing a bunch of video games, or if you're being just recreational with your time, chances are it's going to get in the way between you and you having a great work ethic. That's going to get in the way in your ability to reflect God. How about some of your hobbies? Consider some of your hobbies. Something that I really want to have a great work ethic, and so sometimes, some of my hobbies get in the way. For me, if I'm honest, it's fantasy football. Man, my addiction to fantasy football can sometimes get in the way. So I am supposed to be working on a project, and I show up, I'm supposed to be working, last night I was supposed to kind of finish up this message, and so last night I was on my computer, and rather than working on getting this message done, I was checking my fantasy football team, and, it's like 2 a.m., and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't gone to sleep yet, and I need to go to bed, and I need to, rather than preparing, and so here I am, I had a 7 a.m. meeting this morning, and here I come into the office this morning, not 100% prepared, not having given my best work ethic, because I allowed fantasy football to take the time up. Think about whatever your hobbies are. I don't know, for girls, maybe that's getting your nails done. I don't know, whatever gets in your way. Girls, I don't know. How about some of your friendships? Sometimes our friendships get in the way of us having good work ethic. I have this major disease called FOMO. FOMO disease is FOMO. It's fear of missing out. And there are multiple times when I should be working on something, and I get a text message from one of my friends, James sends me a text message, hey bro, we're all going to be at Epcot tonight, we're all going to be doing this thing tonight, we're all going to Need to Breathe concert in Ocala. I know I should be working, but I'm going to the Need to Breathe concert, chanting! And then I'm up at 4 a.m. the next day and I go, why did I go to the concert? Why? And I allowed my FOMO disease to get in the way of having a good work ethic. Really, and really would consider to ask yourself, really, I don't think a lot of people want to work hard. I think very few people are just purely lazy. Most people, I think, want to work hard. Most people want to do that, but they allow things to get in their life. And really ask yourself, what are the things in my life that is stopping me from having a great work ethic? It's stopping me from reflecting God in my life. And what do I got to do? If that means you got to get rid of social media, then get rid of social media. If that means you got to cut off some friendships, you need to cut off some friendships. Whatever it is you have to do, identify those things and get rid of them. The second thing I think we need to do if we're going to develop a great work ethic is asking people for advice that know better than us. Proverbs 19:20, listen to advice and accept instruction that you may gain wisdom in the future. Andy Kelly does a great job of this. He's one of the most impressive people I know. Andy identifies areas of his life where he wants to get more wisdom and wants to develop in his own life. And he seeks out people older than him who know more than him. And he plans coffee with them and he plans moments with them. He seeks out people to mentor him, whether it be in his finances. I know I taught a conversation a couple weeks ago where he was saying, he came to a point where he realized he wanted to honor God in his finances. He wanted to have responsible financial decisions. So he sought out people who knew more about finance than he did, met with them, and he began to implement that. That's a form of having a good work ethic, being responsible in every single way, working for God in every element of your life in a way that it reflects God. So ask yourself the question, is there anything in my life I need to get rid of immediately? Secondly, is there any people in my life that can teach me how to be better in this area of my life? And the third thing you need to do is remind yourself of the gospel. Every time you do something, remind yourself of the gospel. So when I get up in the morning and I go to the gym and I'm tempted to be lazy, I say, no, Jesus wasn't lazy. God loved me. I was created in the image of God, and I chose to betray God. I basically gave God a big F you. I looked at Him with my life and my attitude, and I gave Him a big middle finger. And I said, God, I'm going to do it my own way. And God says, I should let you go at it your own and let you bring upon yourself the pain and destruction that comes with your stupid decisions. But I love you so much that I refuse to let the story end there. I love you, so I choose to step into your life, cultivate your heart and call you unto myself, and I enable you to come into relationship with me. I rescue you from yourself and your own stupidities, and I restore your ability to reflect me, to come back into relationship with me so you don't have to be separated from me. God loves you so much that He refuses to let the story end there. He rescues us. He restores us. And He does it with great excellence and completion. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. He rescues you. He wants you to reflect Himself to the world. Every time I do a job, whether it's small or it's big, I remind myself that He rescued me, that He loved me. When I get up and I go to the gym and I'm tempted to be lazy, I remember He wasn't lazy when He rescued me. So I'm not going to be lazy in this moment. When I'm cleaning up at the office, I'm just cleaning up the area. Or if I'm just, when we're doing something for student ministry, or when we're making a video, or if I'm doing something as simple as printing off some papers and stapling some things, I'm going to do it with excellence. When I'm hanging a sign up, when I'm setting up pipe and drape, I remember the gospel. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's good enough. No, I'm going to do it with excellence because He rescued me. And He did it with excellence. So everything I do with excellence. Whether it's big, if I'm preparing a sermon or a message, or if I'm doing something as small as setting out pens and papers and setting out the Bibles and the chairs, we do it with excellence. If I'm studying for a test, I do it with excellence. If I'm taking a test, I do it with integrity and excellence to the best of my ability. I study hard. And the reason I do that is because I remember that He rescued me. And He would want me to do that. We may want to have a good work ethic because we want to be promoted. We want to have a good work ethic because it's going to give us credibility. We want to have a good work ethic because it'll develop us. And those are all good things. But ultimately, we want to have good work ethic. We want to be focused and on mission and make good choices in our work day in and day out in every single way. Ultimately, for one reason. Because it honors and reflects God. He rescued you. He loves you. Are you willing to work for Him? What's really in the bag tonight? The sluggard or the ant? And if there's areas, and I think for all of us it's probably a combination. In some areas we're sluggards, and some areas we're the ant. Typically, if the areas where we like and enjoy, we're really good at working hard in those areas. But are we good in every area? And so the team's going to come. They're going to just lead us in a song for a few minutes. And as we worship and as we sing to God, just really be asking yourself, God, where have I been lazy? Where have I been a sluggard? Where have I not reflected you? And really saying, God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the areas where I have been a sluggard. And I want to call you out of being a sluggard in every area of your life. And I want to invite you into reflecting God. I want to invite you tonight. You have the opportunity to reflect God, to worship Him, and to bring joy to His heart. I want to live my life in such a way. I want to live my life with such great work ethic and work so hard that if God was driving around in heaven, He'd put a bumper sticker that says, my son, Kenny, he's a hard worker down in Orlando, Florida. I want God to be proud of me. I want God to look and say, man, look how he worked hard on that test. Man, he wasn't so good at math, so he got a C, but he worked really, really hard. Man, you know, he may not have been naturally really, really good in that area, but he worked really, really hard at it. Man, when he cleaned his room, man, he did a really, really good job of that. He really worked hard at it. Man, when he set up those chairs, he really worked hard at it. Man, I'm happy. Thank you, Kenny. I want my life to be like that. And I believe, wholeheartedly, that millions and trillions of years from now, when we're in heaven, partying, He's going to say, hey guys, check this out. Look what Kenny did. He set up a chair. Isn't that awesome? I believe that, all my heart. He's going to say, man, look what Jared did. Man, his boss didn't appreciate him. But man, he was the best nurse the hospital ever saw. Look how hard he worked. Man, look what Jonathan did. He was the best student Moody ever saw. Man, look what Aaron did. Look how hard he worked at Valencia. Look how awesome he was. Man, look at my boy James. Look how he worked on Worth Day. He worked so hard. Look what my boy did. Who cares? Who cares what the results of our lives are? It's irrelevant. God is saying, are you willing to give me everything? So if you guys will stand. And tonight I want us to just really ask ourselves, what's in the bag? What's really going inside on our hearts? And really ask God, what are the things in my life that I need to get rid of? What are the roadblocks that I need to eliminate? What are the people that I need to get advice from? And what are the areas in which I have forgotten the gospel? God, as we sing to you and we engage with you for the next few minutes, Holy Spirit, will you speak to us? I ask that you would sovereignly and graciously speak to our hearts, God. Point out the areas of our lives that are roadblocks, that are things that will get in the way. Can we get rid of those things? Help us, God, to identify them and to have the audacity and the discipline to get rid of them. God, point out the areas where we need instruction, and may we seek out people that can help us. And God, will you help us remember our rescue? That the story could have ended with sin and separation and hell. But you chose to rescue us. So the story ends with your love and our restoration. God, speak to us now as we sing and we engage with you.